All right, we are recording and we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to start by thanking everyone for being here tonight. I'm really excited to be holding this meeting, and I'm particularly excited because it looks like we have pretty good attendance. And we said from the very beginning that we wouldn't really be able to do this project well unless residents were engaged. And that's been really difficult with the pandemic conditions we've all been living through. So thanks for taking time out of your evening and being here tonight. We really appreciate it. The main goal for this evening is to spend most of our time listening. We've done a lot of talking in the past. That's not what tonight's about. We really want to hear from all of you. So that will be most of our time, but we are going to spend a little bit, 5 to 10 minutes in the beginning, just giving some brief introduction to make sure all of us are on the same page. So we'll outline what we're trying to accomplish with the plan, where we are in the process, and how you can be involved tonight and moving forward. But before I do that, I'm going to briefly turn the microphone over to Village President Bob Walsh to just say a few words of welcome.
Well, nothing more than thank you all for attending. It's been a few months of work to get to this point, and to have everybody get engaged and actually be a part of it is what the it's monumental. So moving forward, this is part of the project. We are thrilled to have this going on. So everybody's input matters, and so I look forward to a lot of enthusiastic commentary. All right, good enough.
Great, thanks for that, Bob. So this project is being conducted by the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, or CMAP, which is the agency that I work for. We're a government agency that works in the 7 counties of the Chicago region. Our main purpose is land use and transportation planning. And one of the ways that we do that is by providing assistance to local governments to conduct a whole range of planning products, from zoning codes to comprehensive plans. And that's why we're here tonight. So this project is mostly funded by CMAP with a local contribution. In the next few minutes, I'm going to ask the project team to introduce themselves, just so you know who's in the room, although we've already met several of you, but we want to be fully transparent. So my name is Jared Patton. I'm the project manager, so I'm touching on kind of every aspect of this project. I've been at CMAP for about 4.5 years now, and my background is in land use and environmental planning. So I have a bit of experience working with rural and growing suburban communities, doing things like zoning codes and neighborhood plans, corridor plans, really the whole range of what land use plans look like. On the environmental side, I do a lot of work with watershed plans, stormwater and flooding, and climate resilience projects. So that's my background. Happy to talk to anything, but that's my specific expertise. Next, I'm going to hand it off to Stephen to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. Many of you know me, but my name is Stephen Ostrander. I'm a senior planner at CMAP. I've been there almost 14 years. And as a result, I've worked on kind of every sort of project you could imagine. Other small towns similar to Burlington, and as well as Chicago neighborhoods, suburbs, that sort of thing. My focus is more land use, kind of corridor planning, that sort of thing. I am interested in all of the things that we're working on in this project. One thing that I'm excited about with this project, though, is that I do think you have a unique look and feel to your community, and I'm very interested in preserving that, but then maybe building on that. So thank you for having me tonight. Dustin.
Thanks, Stephen. So finally, my name is Dustin Cagliari. I'm an associate planner with CMAP. Been with CMAP for a little over 2 years on the project team for the Burlington Comprehensive Plan. My background kind of runs the gambit, a lot of economic development work, some freight planning, as well as kind of public engagement and communications. So I know I've met most of you, but excited to hear from all of you tonight.
All right, great, thanks, Dustin. So that's who we are. Now let's talk about why we're here. So the goal of this project is to produce a comprehensive plan. And in the simplest terms, a comprehensive plan is a document that seeks to establish a vision for a community's future, to figure out where that community wants to be in 20, 30, or 40 years. And then you work backwards to figure out what steps are necessary to make that vision a reality. So we'll provide recommendations that cover the whole spectrum of what a village does. So we'll have recommendations for development, infrastructure, zoning, community events, economic development, really whatever we think will make a difference, we'll provide recommendations. And those recommendations won't just be a list of things we think the village should do. Rather, we'll try to provide guidance for how those things can actually happen. So we'll specify how this starts, who's the person who kicks it off, who are the partners that need to be involved, and importantly, how those projects can be funded, because we know that nothing happens if money isn't available. So there are many other things that a comprehensive plan will do, but that's the high level summary of what we're trying to accomplish. Now, where we are in the process, we're about halfway through. We've been working on this for about a year now. And so far, we've really been focusing on research, both by talking to people, to residents and village officials, and then also by just doing old-fashioned research, looking at census material, transportation data, land use plans, really everything that we could, just to try to get a full comprehensive view of what's happening in the village. We recently took all of that research and put it into what we call an existing conditions report, which I really encourage all of you to take a look at. In a moment, Dustin will show you how you can access it on our website, but it's a really interesting document. Basically, it just summarizes everything in the village relevant to this plan. It has sections on transportation, demographics, housing, municipal administration. And I think it's interesting, both for this project specifically, and also if you're just curious about the village, you like Burlington and want to know more, it's a great resource. And then finally, before I hand it off to Dustin again, I want to address what many of you may be thinking. We've been working on this for a year. We've been trying to talk to as many people as possible, but I'm sure there are people on this call that are just now hearing about the project. And I really want to stress that that's absolutely okay. We haven't made any decisions yet, and we're really trying to ramp up our outreach right now, because in the next kind of 1 to 3 to 4 months, that's when we're going to be making decisions. So if you're just tuning in, that's perfectly fine. Now is the time to be involved. The next steps for this project, we're going to be doing a lot of engagement in the next month through the mail, online, over the phone, and through this event to try to get a feel for what residents are really interested in. We'll then take what we hear and we'll turn that into what we call a key recommendations memo, which is a summary of everything that will likely be in the plan. We'll then publish that memo on the village website, on our website. We'll email it to people and let everyone take a look. And then we'll have another one of these meetings so you can tell us how we did, what things you like, which things you don't, and how we can edit it. Then we'll build the draft plan and you'll have another chance to review it then. So I really want to emphasize that nothing is happening behind a closed door here. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. So I welcome all of your feedback tonight and into the future as we build that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dustin, who's going to show you more specifically how you can provide feedback beyond tonight.
Thanks, Jared. All right, just going to share my screen quick if everyone who's on video can see that. So this is, and some of you may be familiar with this, but this is kind of the primary way we're collecting feedback on the plan right now is through this engagement site. So, and I will drop the URL in the chat as soon as I wrap up here. Or Jared and Stephen, if you could do that right now, that'd be great. So it's very simple. It's cmapillinois.gov/Burlington. And this is kind of the hub for the project. So you'll see we've been advertising this exact meeting right here, kind of at the top above the fold. But there's a lot to interact with and provide feedback and learn more about the project throughout this. If you scroll down, you'll see a few different ways to provide that feedback, both in the form of surveys, an ideas board. You'll see some of your neighbors leaving comments there, interactive maps, and a community forum. I want to highlight in particular the surveys because we have a new one that we've launched on the page in part for tonight that we want to draw your attention to, that really kind of asks about, you know, what's all of your visions for what you want to see the village look like into the future, and kind of how do we get there. We have 2 surveys open right now. The other one is kind of more detailed and goes towards priorities and concerns, but this new one is kind of more open-ended questions. Those actually happen to match up well with, as you may have seen, there are some big poster boards outside Village Hall outlining those same sort of questions and elements from the plan. I think you all probably at this point received something in the mail about the project. So we're concentrating a lot of engagement online, but we're trying to do that cross-platform, do that in a lot of different ways to make sure we're catching everyone at the same time. A couple other things I want to highlight just quickly for you all. You'll see here at the top right of the page, you'll see how the project is progressing. And as Jared kind of highlighted, this is really, we're at the kind of outreach and engagement section. That's really where we're focused. But then you'll also be able to find the any important documents that we're producing, like the existing conditions report that Jared mentioned, any supporting plans and documents that are important to consider, as well as any videos of past meetings or meetings like today. So if anyone who missed it wants to catch up on what happened on the project, they can always come here. With that, I'm happy to take any questions on the engagement page. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to Jared.
All right, thanks for that overview, Dustin. And just to emphasize, we do read everything that goes on that website. Whenever someone completes a survey, I get an email and I get all of the answers that people have put in there. So if you want to read or provide feedback, that is a great place to do it. We will see it and we will take it under advisement. In the final plan, we'll include a summary of everything that we hear on that site. So there's a record of it. It's not just going to disappear when the project ends.
Can we interject and say that Matt and Chris Klein have joined us at the Grow?
Wonderful. Hello, welcome.
Howdy. I'm going to remute.
By the way, congratulations, Matt and Chris, on your new grandson.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lenny. Thanks. Or not.
Now, how's that for a small town?
Love it. All right, so that's it for our introduction. In a moment, we'll transition to the actual content of tonight's meeting, the discussion section. But before we do, I just want to open the floor if anyone has any questions or comments or anything so far just about the process itself. Yeah, Betty. You're muted, Betty.
I'll interject here, Jared. I just want to say, at the way things are set up with Dustin, the way he's got it, I think it's good. It's an easy way for people to hit the link and give opinions on what they're looking for. And I think it's for us, it's very nice, especially from the village board standpoint. Obviously, we want the community to let us know what direction they want us to go. And I think they have a great opportunity to be able to do that.
This is Mary Kay. I would actually agree with that. I've heard from several of our neighbors who said they found that survey to be very easy, where they could put their feedback in and that sort of thing. So that's nicely done.
Wonderful. Glad to hear it.
Procedural question. I wanted to ask where the township, the Burlington Township, dovetails with this work.
That's a great question. So this plan is being done for the village of Burlington. They are our primary partner. But we all know that in Illinois, you're never just working with one unit of government. So we have not, unfortunately, engaged the township too much to date, but we hope to do that in the future, and our recommendations will apply to everyone. So, nothing in this plan is mandatory. We're not going to tell anyone to do anything, especially somebody who's not our primary partner, but we hope to involve them, and we're definitely planning with them in mind.
Thank you.
I think there was one more question or comment. All right.
Hi, I am another small question of again, I live in the township right outside of town. I'm not in town. Um, are you, is this specific meeting just for the stuff that's inside the town limits? Or things that would, are outside the town limits, but definitely affect the town as well?
Yeah, so our primary focus is the village, but again, you can never just look at the village. So, we're glad that you're here. We will keep you in mind and your concerns, and you are very welcome to contribute to the process. Our recommendations will likely focus in the village area, but village boundaries change over time. It's important to have people like you engaged in this process and involved. I think it's super valuable. We do have a focus on the village, but it'll be a bigger project than just that.
Are you looking for what people's input are, or are you really are you involved in infrastructure? I mean, I'm involved with stuff in town, and one of the problems of a small town like this is needs infrastructure, doesn't have the tax base necessarily, needs outside expertise and funding to a large degree for certain infrastructure. I'm sure Bob Walsh knows very well that you got a lot of plans, but if you don't have the money that comes from the outside, that the infrastructure stuff doesn't happen. And that's a tough thing. Does your group, will it identify to the people in town, if the town is looking for financing or technical expertise, let's say for sewage system, go to these guys, they know what to do. It's not us, but we can identify that. Is that part of your focus, is to identify to people who are at the bottom of the food chain, here's some expertise for you, or here's the funding people that you can approach?
Yes, absolutely. That's in the very scope of our document, or of our original project charter, is that we will be trying to connect the village to as many resources as possible. We are a regional agency, so that's kind of our bread and butter, is looking for regional solutions and finding ways to connect people to the resources that they need. So in everything that we look at, we're going to try to find those opportunities. Yeah, so yes, yes is the answer. And
Right.
I should say that when a recommendation is included in a plan, it provides weight when you go out and apply for grants or something else, because you can say, look, we have formally studied this and the community came together and we all decided this is a priority for our community. And that carries more weight when someone's reviewing a grant than just somebody saying like, hey, this is something we need, because it's not just a pet project of an elected official or a concerned resident. It's something that the community really values. So,
Okay.
we can't make promises. We can't guarantee anything. We know that,
Sure.
Funds are limited, but that's something that we are taking very seriously.
Right. I mean, I've worked for governmental organizations before, and quite often the help is out there. They approach you, you have to know where to go to get the help. That you have to have that direction, that pointed, go to this group, go to that group, rather than them coming after you. That's just the way it is. They can't just approach everybody. So having that ability to identify that this kind of project, you should talk to these people, would be very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And, we're government, we're sticking around, and Burlington is very much on our radar. So,
okay.
I have a question, Jared, to Bob.
Yes.
Isn't part of Winterset in the city limits, or is it not, Bob?
No, it is not.
It is not. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, with that, we can transition to the exciting part of the meeting, which is the part where I get to stop talking. This meeting really is intended for us to hear from all of you. So we've broken things up into a few different sections, and we'll give a little bit of an introduction for each section, and we have some questions listed that we'll ask you to respond to. But these questions are not all we can talk about. They're not, mandatory. They shouldn't be limiting. The idea is just to spark conversation. So if you have your own question, let us know. If you want to respond to something that someone else has said, please feel free to do so. If we get a free-flowing discussion going, that's really what we're after. A few notes, just to remind people, we are recording this meeting so that we can look back at it later and make sure that we're actually, paying attention to what people are saying. We know everything that's been mentioned. Also, because we are doing this virtually, we also have this great chat function. So if while other people are talking, you want to ask a question, but you don't want to unmute yourself, or you just want to make a statement to make sure that it's on the record and we have it recorded, feel free to type that and send us a message. We will be monitoring it. And with that, we can get started. So the first section, the first topic area on our list is about protecting Burlington's small town character. So the one thing that we've heard from almost everyone that we've spoken to time and time again is that Burlington is a small town and residents really value that. I think most people recognize that, you know, everything changes. Burlington isn't stuck under glass, it'll change, but people don't want to lose that small townness. Likely one of our plan recommendations will be around that area, but it's not enough to just say Burlington should be a small town. We need to figure out what that actually means. So that's my first question for all of you is, you know, what does it mean to be a small town? What is it about Burlington that makes it a small town? Is it the size? Is it the types of buildings, being able to walk around, the access to the countryside, a little bit of everything? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. What makes a small town a small town?
Hi, Jared. This is Mary Kay. The small town in Burlington, what makes it special is because you can walk all over. You can walk a little further and you could be in a farm field. You know, you can see the sunset. People know who you are. Everybody watches out for each other. And it's the little things like that that really matter. If you move into this town from a bigger city, it's probably one of the first things you notice in your new town.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything to add? Do you disagree? All right. Well,
I agree. And, you know, there's just so many, there's the ability to be connected with people in a different way than, you know, I lived in the country when I was small, then I lived in the suburbs, and then I lived in the city. And now I've been out here over 30 years. I really, you know, there's something so precious about knowing people who know each other.
And I'm gonna piggyback on what Betty said. And I when I think about Burlington, I think about a sense of security, not busybodiness. I mean, I think we all look after each other because we don't have a municipal police force, but you know, I think if I had a flat tire, somebody would recognize me and say, "Oh, here, let me help you."
Yeah, even to strangers.
Even to strangers.
A sense of community and family, extended family.
Exactly.
So this is Mary Lake, and just going on that, you know, we do a lot of coffee clutching at our local BP Burlington Oasis in the morning. And it's kind of fun because people have come in and noted that it's just amazing that they can walk into an environment, hear some off-the-wall conversations that they can actually still identify with, you know, and just the friendliness of the group. And you don't get that in larger communities.
Here we go mute.
Sorry, I'm being slow to unmute myself just so people can keep talking. I'm a big fan of awkward silences. No, but this is really great. I really appreciate these answers. All right, well, you know, my next question was what people love about Burlington, but it sounds like we've already answered that one. So maybe we can skip that unless somebody has something they want to throw out there and go to, is there anything you would like to see change in Burlington?
I got that. Just a more solid mix of residential and the commercials, industrial, outward, you know, kind of blend that takes the burden off of the rooftop owner and redistributes it into, within a reasonable margin, I'll say. Because we know that industrial pays like a 10% tax rate based on, homes are, I'm going to quote a wrong number, so I'm not going to put it out there, but we'll say considerably less. So, as we're doing smart development, it would be awesome if we can figure out how to support what we have on the outskirts of town to better develop what the Burlington proper area is.
I'll add to that. I'd like to see some more small business in town. We got a great restaurant we're at right now. Need a breakfast place.
We need another entity kind of like, well, I'm not trying to shoot the messenger, shoot the girl down, but the hot dog place was really, the place, especially during the summer, where you could just literally almost drive by and have a hot dog in your car.
Diversity thrives.
Yeah.
That does take support, and the local people need to support it.
Yeah.
And probably outside people coming through.
Yes.
Coming through, going to work in the morning, like that.
So going to that point, knowing that in Burlington's future, there's actually a bypass in the plan of, bypassing Burlington proper, which puts out new challenges as to how we're going to support these businesses that we miss if our through traffic doesn't have an opportunity to stop.
So I have a follow-up question about that. In the previous plan, that was 2005, I believe, there was quite a bit of mention to that bypass, but I haven't heard it still being around as a priority project. What do people think about that? Because one of the things about a plan is you're able to state your community's formal opinion, and planning agencies take that into consideration when plans are developed. So does anyone have thoughts about a project like that?
First, I would like to know more about that because I don't know. Is it about Plank Road bypassing town, or what is it?
The way it was originally drawn, and Bob and Mary Kay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Deutsch Street would be extended through all the way to French Road. So Burlington proper, as we know it right now, wouldn't actually be a common thoroughfare.
The last rendition, if I could help with a little bit on that, the last rendition of that, it's like a 2040 plan or later with Kane County. Obviously, it takes a lot to put that together. But the intent of that was to take the French Road up just about where the sewer treatment plant is, and may turn that to, I believe it would be south, and actually come in behind, underneath the railroad tracks and end up on the very far west side under Burlington. Let me see, handstand up to Burlington Road. So it comes, actually, it was that loop is just east. I guess I would call it just east of that intersection would be just east of where the CYFL is at. So it's just east of that. What used to be, I guess I would recommend where you see all the GMC vehicles there. It's actually between two buildings there. There's an open area. That's the area that would go. So, and that still exists. John, please go ahead.
Hey, Deutsch would not connect to French Peplo. It would remain a dead end,
right?
Unless everybody on that street wanted to connect it. But the intent of the original design was not to connect Deutsch and to leave, just so it wouldn't become a shortcut of some means.
So a lot of that
well, if I could say,
go ahead. Go ahead, Dick.
On the one plan I saw a few years ago, it would continue on south and it would kind of come into Peplo Road right about Chapman. And like you said, it would kind of go around the east side of town.
That is correct.
But at that point, there was going to be, another 1,000 houses here. That was the purpose of it. And those 1,000 houses, they haven't happened.
can we ask a favor of everyone? We're in a pretty big open area, so can we ask you all to speak up just a tiny bit, please?
Yes.
Okay, Betty.
Thank you.
All right, well, this conversation is really great. Does anyone have any last comments before we move on to our next theme?
You know, I got one thing that I thought of. It's not uncommon, and maybe they're working on it, that the power goes off out here on a regular basis. Where I'm at outside of town, it's worse than being in town. And I see ComEd working, especially at that corner, you know, where Art and Alma's is all the time. Is part of your plan to, you know, coordinate with utilities so that they're keeping up with the demands of the town? And someone said they'd like some more industry, but if ComEd's, you know, it's always been a problem out here. It's not as bad as it was 20, 30 years ago, but it happens all the time. And you know, is there someone who's going, are you guys planning ahead? Or are you guys just trying to keep up with when things fail? It seems like they're always in town working on stuff, which affects me south of town. But it's, you know, people who live in Elgin or Schaumburg, I don't think they experience the amount of power outages, you know, in a more, you know, urban area than what happens out here.
Yeah,
Best
so,
way-
sorry, you go, Bob.
The best way to answer that from my perspective is that common is a supply and demand. So, you know, they adapt or they grow their systems to adapt to what development is going on. At this point, even though we may have some hardships, there's nothing major they're going to do at this point. When we bring in the excuse me, the, oh my gosh, powers, but the what we having? Sorry, just Nexamp, excuse me, Nexamp. Okay, I apologize. That in that particular case, ComEd has to make some adjustments to that. There's other parts of that. There's 3 other locations. ComEd adapts to that. There's no major here unless there's a demand for it. I hate to say it this way, but in their eyes, you know, yeah, they've supplied us right now. That will come along will be in time. One of the things that I wanted to hit on, and Dick, when you had talked earlier about, does this include everybody around the village? Absolutely. This whole process, even though it might be the focal point, it is about what happens to this future of the village on all the surrounding areas from that in the future. So it's bigger than just, you know, what's sitting right in front of us. You see behind me a map on the wall. It's not, I just happen to keep that there because this is kind of ideal, because when you look at the village that are properties that we're trying to, you know, we're managing or we have incorporated into the village, annexed into the village. CMAP project and potential is to help of that, and then, you know, Phyllis says a lot of aspects of the village in general. Yes, the center of Burlington is why this is here. CMAP is here, but to me, and I think that everybody would recognize has far more potential than that when you're looking into the future, 20, 30 years from now. So I think I hit a lot of topics there, but it brings some clarity to it.
No, that was good.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, with that, we can move on to our next topic, which is economic development. And I believe I'm going to throw it to Dustin to lead us through that conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. And I wanted to pick up on a thread that we were talking about earlier in terms of, you know, kind of more small businesses in town and how we support that. I guess the 2 questions I would throw out to all of you are, you know, what types of businesses would you like to see and like to see the village try to attract? And then concurrently with that, how can the village best support local businesses?
We only ask small questions.
I want a breakfast place.
What do you say?
Breakfast place.
Breakfast place.
I want some, I have to go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. I want somewhere I can go to breakfast before I go to work. Which I think actually with the amount of traffic on Burlington Road, that I think that would be a reasonable thing to, it would be successful. Let's put it that way. I believe it would be successful because there is, between Burlington and Plank Road, you know, there's a lot of traffic around here. And if you had some place that opened to 5 in the morning, maybe a problem that the town has would be wherever it is parking. But I think that could be a successful thing that would draw people into town.
For sure.
Dustin, if I could please, just Mary Lake, in regards to Dick's statement, we do endorse the breakfast place. A 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. seems like an awesome, you know, kind of deal. But the challenge is parking that's existing to support the businesses. And when our people want to put a business in place, whether or not they can actually build the business according to what they want to, or if our parking is going to restrict what they can actually do. And I'm going to use the old Verna building as an example there. When they wanted to do an actual deli, the way it was explained to me was they could do, well, they wanted to do a diner, and the limited parking was going to actually allow them to do something more along the lines of a takeout deli than a full service come in and sit down diner. So parking inside of the village of Burlington is an absolute challenge, especially when we're in the winter months and most of our snow accumulation takes up premium real estate when it comes to parking.
So parking is a challenge in the sense of if you want to open a business, there's not enough existing parking, or that the village is requiring all, like, you to build or secure new parking, and that's a challenge.
I think you'll find there's not enough existing parking. There's not necessarily the ability to expand off-street parking that much, but right now there's just, you know, there's not much parking along, you know, along Main Street. There's no, let's say, municipal parking lot anywhere, you know, so it's tough when if you had 30 people wanting to park, you know, and we all know on Friday nights at the four-way stop sign, it's difficult to park, and that's a situation that could be looked at.
Even if it's to go into some type of agreement, I mean, Old Second has a huge parking lot that most of the time is not even utilized. You know, so if we just take it stock on what already exists and see if there's some kind of agreement that can be entered into, you know, rather than reinventing the wheel, let's use the wheel that's there.
There has been some, as you may have or may not know, obviously with the Burlington Business Council, Latitude Builders had the interest on building on the Sandusky, the Gann property up on the south side of town. And since then, they put that up for sale. I had brought up to the board that John and I had spoke with some interested parties in that property for the exact same thing. Their interest is not the breakfast as much as it is for lunch and dinner, but it's by the logistics and that geography. That's what interests them. Where to, you know, anybody that's going to develop, put in a restaurant, that's what you said. That cumulative effect of the parking is one thing. And then how do we, you know, do people want to walk a block or two to have breakfast? In that particular case, the parking is established by how many patrons are inside and so forth, and ADA and all that, but it fits that piece of property. So there's potential there, at least that interest, I would like to pass that on. I did mention it, it's really in its smallest, there's one meeting, but it was a very positive meeting. The fact is that it's those types of places, those types of areas that lend themselves to the ability. And then we're limited on that. So, when you get to this parking spot, there was talk it was actually only my second term as a trustee about a particular lot in the village that the village may have purchased to create a parking lot. But, that never came to fruition because, we're okay. But this growth part, if someone came to town and wanted to talk to that, it's a little more it's a little more difficult to invite that situation than for those who are looking to build a specific restaurant. And of course, on what we call it, the north side of town there, Plank and Burlington Road, there's a lot more opportunity there. We want the downtown thing, but there's certainly a lot of logistics. So this CMAP plan, these plans for the future are the things that we have to be thinking about. How do we get that done and make it inviting? So it's, and it's cost and effect. So we recognize that. Anyways, there's always something out there, as minimal or not. Had things changed for Latitude, that restaurant wasn't breakfast. Dick, you would have had breakfast every day. It was that's their intent, was that till, from 5 till 2.
So not to get too far ahead of us and jump into the recommendations phase, but this is really great to hear because we'll be thinking about how we can address these parking issues while simultaneously addressing the first topic of conversation, which is how do we make Burlington stay a small town, and how do we ensure that you can still walk around so that downtown is able to, grow and develop and have these businesses people want without turning it into a giant parking lot. So that's the value of this planning process, is how we can find that compromise to really set the village up for success.
And possibly not possibly, certain times of year, this all will interconnect with the whole walkability bicycle paths kind of thing. And, there's the parking where people park just across from Art and Alma's when they're open. There's further parking in front of the church that's only used a couple times a week. And still within about a block, there's of the Moore's place where the hot dog stand is, and maybe will be again. There is parking at the fire station that's still fairly close to those locations.
Yeah, so I think one thing I'm hearing is how can we maybe better utilize the existing resources you have, in particular around parking, to help support, existing and new opportunities that could come into town. That's kind of what I'm hearing from everyone. And yeah, absolutely, that's something like, it's kind of already on our radar, but hearing this from all of you and specifically some of the resources that exist is really, really helpful. So thanks to everyone for that. Jared, should I turn it over to Stephen? Should we keep things moving, or otherwise I've got a couple more questions I can walk
You know
through.
what? I think Mary Lake had a response she'd like to make.
Yeah, and thank you. I just want to make sure that as we're, consoling ourselves as to what parking is available, that we don't lose sight of the fact that it's actually private property that does not belong to the village as an entity that we're talking about. So it's really not a village solution. It's a temporary situation until that private property actually moves on to its next use.
Yeah, for sure. And, that might be something too, where, what can the village and private property owners do to talk about flexible spaces and things like that. But yeah, that's a very good point and something that definitely will have to be incorporated.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we are coming up on just 10 minutes left, so I do want to give Stephen a chance because I know he has some good questions. And then I'm happy to stick around for a little while after, but I imagine many of you need to go. So.
Well, in terms of Jared saying we only ask the big questions, infrastructure and kind of where things should go. So basically, I have a question. Where do you feel development should go? What should it look like? and where should it not go? So that's kind of a big question. And I would think most of you would have an opinion on that. So what do you think?
I mean, the
You're thinking
typical
about it.
thing is an industrial park these days, right? Where you put it off by themselves, perhaps on French Road now. On the interior part of French Road is where they're putting up the solar panels, I guess. So there's nothing that I know of, and I don't know everything about if is there something designated in the existing plan as an industrial park, which would help the tax base and employment around here. But you wouldn't want to, just take a factory and plop it down in the middle of town. Those kinds of things, to be put on the periphery, or also to be along Plank Road, because that's where vehicles are coming and going all the time. So I would think an industrial park concept would be better than just a hodgepodge or, along the railroad tracks deal kind of a thing.
Thank you, Dick. Yeah, I should have specified industrial housing, possibly commercial development are all the sorts of development we're talking here, but industrial is definitely one of them. So thank you, Dick.
Can I make a comment on the housing part of this? Am I?
No, we're not.
Nope, we can hear you.
Okay. Matt's telling me fibs here. Smart growth, and I think I've touched on this several other times, is, if we want to grow, we have to do it smartly, and we have to have a plethora of housing, from first-time home buyer to something a little bit more elite. We can't just cater to the $500,000 home buyers. We have to have, to grow and to grow smartly, we have to have places for first-time home buyers, young families, single incomes, that kind of thing. And to do that's going to take a lot of research, and we can't just throw it, like Dick Terrell said, we just can't do it hodgepodge and throw it up willy-nilly.
So,
Even like, a 55 and older community, because it is such a cute little place. Like Betty and Dick are saying, not just willy-nilly, but smartly.
Right. But that's going to take a ton of research, Mary Kay, and how we do that.
Exactly.
Part of that research is, in historically, or it's just called the day and age that we live in with financial, is that I find it harder to believe that a developer is going to come in and do $400,000 homes, because there'll be so few, and then the pricing of that with something smaller than that and more family oriented. Part of that, it being lucrative, is being close to where the potential sewer treatment plant would be, because it's less infrastructure for them and so forth. The ideas of a small industrial park. There's properties just east of town between Elgin Community College and the housing there. There's an area there that it's at least listed as, hey, light industrial. It's a Bob Luce property that's been there for a while. That actually, I think it sits on both sides of what that Plank Road realignment, Plank Road would be someday. So there's some thought in that, at least. But that light industrial moving just out of town, like Dick said, is absolutely, you're right. Where you want to have businesses that are in town are the ones that we would be walking to and enjoying. But homes they kind of lend themselves, because of the infrastructure factor alone, that cost to any developer is you're more towards the north, and then or to the east, a little bit northeast of that. So there's places and potential. There's people that there were investors that had talked about that potential, but it's a dollar amount, and I think there's less fear in having 50 homes on a 70-acre site than having, that density a little tighter, because that's more cost effective. The smart part on that part is just not becoming too dense, but somewhere in there is a happy medium where the developer spend the money to make that happen. So it's, we continue to look for that. So.
Thank you, Bob. Does anybody have any comment? I mean, private property is private property, but are there areas where you would rather not see development go in the community, at least generally speaking?
Mary Lake has a comment.
So, yeah, and I love the fact that there are so many village board members and our village president current, and both of our future village president, candidates are on this call. Because the thing that when I see what is designated to be light industrial from past maps that have been put together for the village of Burlington, the concern I have is that, just to give you a visual aid, D&M Plastics is on 8 acres. We own 15 acres over there, but because of existing wetlands and lack of access to the back portion of the property, I just want all of us to be able to put that visual to mind as to what a single manufacturing facility looks like. There's nothing, there's no way that we can build on those existing 8 acres. And the properties that we're talking about on the outlying areas, it would be interesting to know what kind of valuation the properties have in regards to the wetlands that Burlington is as a group to consider what it is we're mapping out for what's going to help us, implement and provide infrastructure support, and just make sure that we don't starve ourselves too quickly in the process.
Okay. Other comments?
And yeah,
Well, I
similarly,
would love to have that challenge. I'd love to have all those challenges in front of us.
Yeah.
But,
Well, if you build it, they will come.
yeah, it takes some,
similarly, at least before the bubble burst in 07 or so, at least one of the developers who was owning land around here or owning rights to it had planned to have maybe approximately the number of homes as there were acres in certain, or something similar, but it wasn't 1 home per acre. It was, the homes would have been in one area of the property, and then other areas would have been open with paths. Woods would have been left intact. And I think that's a really vital concept.
yeah, our developments from all those times in the past require a significant amount of open space that created that. So it's balancing that with the densities and how close the houses are, that sort of thing. But that was key to, and it still sits the same, and that in my mind has not ever changed. So you want to have that open space.
Great. We have that where we live, and we love it.
Okay. Thank you,
you.
Betty. Jared, do you want to keep going, or what do you think?
Well, I am happy to stick around for a little while longer, but I do want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So I'm going to do a quick wrap up, and then if you want to jump off and go about the rest of your evening, no judgment. You're welcome to do that, but I'll stick around for a few more minutes because this is really great conversation, and I don't want to miss out on it. So just a few closing words, and then we can keep going. Next steps in this process, as I mentioned before, we are going to use the feedback that we hear today and that we hear online and through the mail and over the phone over the next month, and we're going to put together a key recommendations memo. Once that's done, we're going to work with our steering committee to perfect it a little bit, and then we'll publish it and give everyone a chance to read it through. And I really recommend that you read that document closely because that is our draft outline. It'll say how the plan is likely to be organized, and then it'll give a step-by-step what that actually means. So what kind of things are we going to be recommending? We won't be saying specific things like put a crosswalk here, but we would have higher level recommendations like, more crosswalks would be good, for example. And the reason that I really encourage you to read that document closely when it comes out is because it is the perfect time where we have a pretty strong idea of what things are likely to look like. So you can really respond to something concrete, but it's not so late that we can't make changes. At that phase, we can still change anything. So it's a great chance to let us know if you agree with it or not. And if you don't, we're totally happy to redo it and make sure that you get a final product that you agree with. Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to create CMAP's plan for Burlington because that would be a useless document. We're trying to create Burlington's plan for Burlington. So it's really important that that reflects your interests.
Jared,
Yes.
I have a question. Did you say you did record this? And I'm just concerned that some of the people that couldn't come tonight, maybe we can have it so that they can sit and watch it or listen to it.
Absolutely. It is being recorded, still being recorded, and this will go on the project webpage so people can take a look at it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So a couple ways you can be involved. Dustin mentioned previously, we sent a mailer to everyone who lives in the village of Burlington. If you receive that, there's a little postcard you can fill out, send it back to us, and we'll take a look and see what you have to say. We've also put together a series of posters that Bob will be hanging in Village Hall. Those should be up soon if they're not already up.
They are done. They're here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's been a tremendous help. So those just give a quick summary of that existing conditions report, some of our high-level findings, and then mention some of the outstanding questions that we still have. Outstanding because we still need to answer them, and also because they're great questions. So the engagement page, that's the best place for you to leave comments in the near future. But also I'm dropping my email and my phone number in the chat right now. If you want to talk, give me a call, send me an email. Always happy to find a time for us to speak, and you can just tell me everything that's on your mind. Super helpful. And if you're just hearing about this project and you want to be more involved, you're welcome to join our steering committee. Always happy to have more people there. The more people involved in this process, the better the result will be. So that's it. That's my closing spiel. But like I said, I'm happy to stick around, happy to keep this conversation going. But if you have somewhere to be, I recognize not everyone is interested in talking about planning all evening. So feel free to sign off, and I'll stick around for anyone who wants to keep talking.
I just want to thank everybody for attending and being part of the integral to what's going on in the future. This is our first opportunities, and let's keep moving forward, because we need to find what we're looking for here. So thank you all again.
Yeah, it's good to have engagement and have some input and just see what's going on instead of just always being not in the dark, but just, clueless, which is not uncommon, so it's good that this is available. So with that, I do have to go, so I'll talk. So if you would put the website address somewhere so that we could, my wife says she's got it, so all right, so all right, I'm see you later.
Thanks for stopping by. And I'm going to go ahead and stop recording while people are jumping off.